And we found a room to rent in someone's basement for $400 a month. So that was what you could do back then. So I really watched the city transform over the last 20 years and grow. And obviously a lot of that has been part of the explosion of the tech industry and lots of people moving to our region. And we've seen a lot of great changes, and also Seattle has become a city that is so hard to afford for so many people, right? For young people, for elders, for working families. And the work that I've done over the years, so back in 2011, I co-founded an organization called the Transit Riders Union. And at that time, this was a few years after the global financial crisis of 2008, and it was kind of in the depths of the Great Recession. And that was a time when local governments around the country, transit agencies around the country, were facing massive budget shortfalls. And so our county bus system, King County Metro, was talking about cutting bus service countywide by 17%. Some of you might remember back in 2011. And so at that point, I got involved in the fight to save our bus service. And out of that campaign grew this organization called the Transit Riders Union, which I've been organizing with, leading for the last 14 years. In the early years of that group, we did a lot of fighting for better bus service, for sustainable funding for our transit system, and also for affordable fares, because another thing that had happened over those few years from 2008 to 2011 was that fares had been increased a number of times to try to make up the budget shortfall. So one of our first big campaigns and coalitions that I had a hand in building was to win a low-income reduced fare, and that became the Ortho Lift program, which now tens of thousands of transit riders around our region use to ride for $1 a ride instead of the $2.75 or $3 of the standard fare. Back in 2015, I was proud to support Rainier Beach High School students who were fighting for free transit for students, and they won, and that campaign ended up expanding and inspiring the free transit for youth that we now have across Washington state. Back when Trump was elected for the first time, back in 2016, the Transit Riders Union, we began, because our members, we're a membership organization, Democratic membership organization. Our members are transit riders, but they're also renters, they're also low-wage workers, and so all these issues affect us. And so we began to kind of branch out and work on other issues, I would say all loosely grouped together as economic justice. So we've done a lot of work on progressive taxation, and in 2020, I played a big role in designing and passing the Jumpstart payroll expense tax, which is Seattle's landmark tax on wealthy corporations, which really prevented devastating service cuts during the pandemic, and has also been key to balancing the city budget for the last 4 years. Coming out of the pandemic, as rents were increasing by very large amounts, I helped to put together a coalition of over 50 organizations around the county called Stay Housed, Stay Healthy. And we pushed for successfully stronger renter protections in 8 different cities around the county, including Seattle. And so this is things like longer notice of a rent increase. So if your landlord's going to raise your rent a large amount, then you get 6 months notice instead of the 60 days notice required by state law. Limits on late fees, limits on move-in fees, things like this that can improve housing stability for renters across our county. And then finally, well not finally, but another big area of work that I've been involved in over the years is living wages for low-wage workers. And so in 2022, I helped to build a coalition and lead a campaign in the city of Tukwila to raise the minimum wage through a ballot initiative. And we built such a strong coalition that we actually had no opposition, and we won at the ballot with 83% of the vote. And Tukwila now has the highest minimum wage in the country, and that has inspired similar campaigns in a number of other cities. Renton, and then I and the Transit Riders Union were also involved in bottom-lining a similar campaign in Burien and for unincorporated King County. And actually now, this year, I believe Olympia and Tacoma also have minimum wage ordinances on the ballot that were inspired by that work. So success is contagious, and it's been really my privilege to be part of this organizing over the years. And honestly, until February of this year, I had no serious thought of running for elected office. I saw my role as on the outside, helping to build up the people power that we need to get good legislation passed and implemented. What changed for me in February was we had a special election on social housing to fund Seattle's new social housing developer. And I think our housing crisis is complex. There's a lot of different facets of it. There's a lot of things we need to do to make housing more affordable in Seattle. But I do believe that social housing is an important part of the solution. This is publicly owned, permanently affordable, mixed income housing. It's a little different from how we normally do affordable housing here in the US, although not entirely. If you look at some of the things that King County Housing Authority does, even Seattle Housing Authority, it could be thought of as social housing. But anyway, there was a funding measure to fund the new social housing developer through a tax on wealthy corporations, and our current mayor was kind of the face of the opposition campaign, or the campaign for an alternative measure, which really undermined the intent of that initiative. I was surprised when Prop 1A passed in a landslide. I'm very happy about that. But my next thought was, we really need a mayor, we really need city leadership that is going to fight to make social housing work, because this is a big new project. There's a lot of complexity around governance and financing. It needs to be put together in the right way. And so if we have a mayor who doesn't believe in this project, it could easily fail. And people are going to lose faith in it if they're not seeing results in the next few years. And I think what that election also taught me was that our current mayor is a little bit out of touch with the reality that ordinary people are facing in our city right now. Because everyone saw his face on the mailers that they got, and a large majority still voted for this measure. So that was what got me thinking about running for office. And I've been blown away over the last 8 months of this campaign by the momentum and the support, the enthusiasm that this campaign has inspired. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to put together a stellar administration to hopefully lead this city after Election Day. So I guess I'll stop there as an introduction, and happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you, Katie. So we are audience participation. Just show hands. How many of you already have a question that is ready to go? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That might be all we have time for. So I'm going to go. So we'll limit the responses to 3 minutes. I'll set a timer so we can get through as many questions as possible. We want to hear from many voices. So we'll go here, and then I'm going to go here, and then we'll go there. 1, 2. There was somebody over here. Yeah, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and introduce yourself, where you live, and a brief question.
I'm David Michael Stedman. I live in Sewer Park. I work at Pike Place Market, and I was at your event at John's house, and it was super sweet. And I've gotten texts from various people on the different boards that mentioning you were a busker, and I read about that in the New York Times, and that was good in the New York Times to be able to see that you were a busker. And I've been looking on the internet. Where's your music at? I want to hear the jams. I brought my guitar. So if we want to jam later, we totally can. But how do we find your music?
This is like a
It's a softball. It's a softball.
And by the way, I'm going to try to keep my answers much shorter than 3 minutes, so we can get to more.
Awesome.
So, I'm not someone who in my life has been I don't take photographs, I don't take videos. So there's whole periods of my life where I have no photographic or video evidence of it. I could probably find some jam recordings that other people took from, because I used to go there were jams at people's houses. This was kind of bluegrass, Americana kind of music, and I played a bunch of different instruments. None of them super well, by the way. So I'm not a great musician. But yeah, I don't have any videos of me busking into Market, unfortunately.
As a fellow busker, I would love to. If you have something you like, I will make sure it gets out there that you like.
Okay, I'll let you know if I find any videos.
All right, great question. Thank you. Introduce yourself. Maybe stand when you ask your question.
My name is Cindy Dam, and I live in the area here. One of the major problems with homeless is that the organizations that have been given money, we paid millions and millions of dollars in taxes, that they have not done anything with it. There's been no accountability and no clear direction for how to use those funds. How do you plan to address that?
Yeah, so I definitely agree that the money that we're spending on homelessness is not being spent as effectively and efficiently as it should be spent. In my mind, and not disputing that there might be some organizations that aren't doing a great job with the money that they're being given, but I think the really big bottleneck that we have right now is a just extreme insufficiency of emergency housing and shelter. We have 2 homeless people on the street for every 1 shelter bed in the Seattle area. The current administration is spending a lot of money moving people around without actually meaningfully offering shelter and support. So we really need to urgently open the emergency housing and shelter. I have a number of ideas for how to do that, which if people want me to spend time talking about, I can. But without that, all the money that we're spending on services and treatment, right, it doesn't go as far as it should, because instead of creating these realistic pathways for people out of their current situation into an inside situation with support, we have all these dead ends. So people end up in Harborview when they have a crisis, and then they're being discharged onto the streets. That is a time when we should be getting them inside, right? So there's all these things like that where these systems aren't lining up in a way that then makes the money that we're spending inefficient, right? So we need to open more emergency housing and shelter, and we need, when we're doing outreach to encampments, right, we need to be getting people inside. And we have models that work, right? There's the Just Care model that was pioneered during the pandemic by several nonprofits that was very effective at resolving encampments, removing encampments by getting people inside. And that model was continued in the state right-of-way program that was resolving encampments near highways. So we know it works, but we're just not doing it here in Seattle.
So how can you hold these organizations accountable for how they use their money?
We definitely, we have metrics in the way that we do contracting, and we can be better at that. I guess what I'm saying is that I don't think that the problem is primarily individual organizations mismanaging their money. I don't think that is, I'm not saying that doesn't happen at all, but I'm saying that is not primarily the problem. The problem is more of a kind of overarching problem of making sure that all of these organizations that the city and the county, and through KCRHA at this point, the King County Regional Homelessness Authority is contracting with, is that the whole system is not put together in the right way for that money to be effectively spent.
Yes.
So yes, we need accountability from individual organizations, but that is not the problem. The problem is the more overarching coordination problem and the insufficiency of housing.
Great, thank you. Over here.
Hello, my name is Ryan Arquiden. I'm in the, Seattle or Seattle area, from Chicago. And I like how you answered the last question, so I can start with that, where it's just in case, I think it was just right, or just right in case, moving in housing. There's housing first priority. Services with Washington, But at the same time, it's just how do you even force take allocation of the right funds to the right areas? Because they may not be going to the right places, of course, but how do you even make the metrics for you should put your money here? How do you get people to believe in you? But then I have a second question, but I'll let you to answer that first. Like you just said, we have metrics, but also how do you start with those?
So you're asking how do we make sure that the money's going to the right places?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, their money, of course, and of course these are NGOs and some of them maybe for profit as well. I'm not really sure exactly. I worked at a housing shelter over in Bellingham, which is all NGO, Meals and Mission Center. Its own issues, but how do you help them out? I guess you'd be a consultant at that point, the mayor, you don't have the money, but.
Yeah, I guess what I'll say to this is that, right now the situation is that most of the city's homelessness spending goes through the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, which is this regional agency that was set up several years ago. So the county and the city's money now kind of goes through that. And there's actually a big question about the future of that agency because it's been very troubled, and part of that's been leadership problems, but it's also kind of structural problems with how it was set up. And so, I actually think in the short term, it's probably going to be necessary for the city to claw back at least some contracts from the KCRHA so that, we have a very short lead up next year, in the first half of next year, to the FIFA World Cup. And so that's going to create a very aggressive timeline and pressure to really address homelessness in the downtown core and adjacent neighborhoods. And we really don't want a repeat of what happened during the MLB, our All-Star game, where there was a lot of just kind of sweeping people into adjacent neighborhoods. And so I think there's going to have to be a really big focus on what are we doing about downtown homelessness and in those other neighborhoods so that we're not just moving people around. And so that's going to mean, potentially the city kind of taking more control of some of those contracts and deciding how we're doing that better. And I think standing up more tiny house villages and micro-modular housing, and then getting people directly from encampments or from the street into those tiny homes.
I'll support that, and I know this is just a small thing before. So with what we've just heard in the last, day, Amazon, 40,000 jobs, and a lot of these jobs are in Seattle, of course.
Yeah.
I do canvassing, and I just lost my job, as of recent. What's going on. It's not anyone's fault, well, anyone's fault. It's definitely something that's going on the East Coast or in DC.
Yeah.
My question with that is, is there a way? Is there a way for you to say that you protect our jobs well, and also like I go door to door, and I do canvassing for Washburn actually. I'm talking to folks, and it's just like they're losing. These are people like nice, very like these aren't affordable houses. Like this is nice housing for private. Like they're telling me that we can't do stuff. So what do you say to them, I guess, and also to us?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are big questions about kind of economic development in Seattle and our region, and what we're seeing happen right now with layoffs. A lot of tech companies are doing layoffs right now, and some of that is potentially related to AI. It's a little bit unclear, but I think looking into the future, I guess first looking into the past, is very clear that for the last 20 years or so, we've really been riding this kind of tech wave, and there's been this kind of underlying assumption that certainly has been built into the way the city budgets, that that's just going to continue, and it's just going to go up and up and up, and we're just going to have more and more tech jobs. And I think we can't assume that that's true in the same way moving forward. Seattle's going to continue to be a big tech hub. We want it to continue to be a big tech hub, but I don't think we can assume that we're just on this continual upward trajectory in terms of tech jobs. And so I think that the city has a real role to play there in working with the business community and really envisioning what other sectors of the economy can we really intentionally grow? Can we grow the green economy, right? Like in partnership with the port, and have more alternative energy companies located here? And what's the role of the city in trying to make that happen? And obviously this also intersects with kind of downtown revitalization and also all of our business districts. And also I always remember that so many jobs in our city are small business jobs too. And so there's also, what can the city do to better support small businesses? I've been having a lot of roundtable discussions with small business owners in neighborhoods around the city, and I think I'm going to continue that, once I'm in office, and really want to figure out how the city can do better to support small businesses around the city too.
All right, thank you, Katie. I'll always believe in you.
Thank you. Let's go. I know a hand back here, and then we can go there. You want to introduce yourself and a brief question?
Yeah, my name is Mita. I thought I'm with Stop and Indivisible, and my personal question was, we're kind of all expecting eventually to get either military and National Guard, or just National Guard, but like troops on the streets. How are you gonna deal with that?
Good question.
Yeah, great question. And I think you're right that this is something that we have to, obviously we can try to prevent it from happening, we can hope it doesn't happen, but we also have to be very prepared for it to happen. The first thing I think is making sure that the city has close relationships and is learning from all the cities that have already experienced this, right? LA, DC, Chicago, and talking with their mayors, understanding what happened there, learning from the way that their fights played out in the courts. And obviously we will fight in the courts in every way possible. So that means working with our city attorney, with our attorney general, the governor, and making sure that we're kind of strengthening that constitutional shield as much as possible. Now, in the event that that the National Guard or federal troops are actually sent into Seattle, there is where I think it's so important that the city is working closely with community organizations around the city, including Indivisible, right? Because we know that we're all going to stand up and protest, right? And so how can we do that in a way that is as safe as possible and that is focused on de-escalation and not giving those fireworks that we know that Trump wants? And so, that's a matter of preparedness, and I think that there's a lot of, I know there's lots of organizations out there that are doing nonviolence trainings, and so the city needs to be a good partner in that. So that we're all prepared if that happens to protect our neighbors. And similarly with the ICE ramping up operations, right? We've seen in other cities really heroic acts by ordinary citizens, and we need to make sure that that knowledge of how to do this safely, how to protect your neighbors as much as possible, is as infused as possible through the city. And then, of course, another piece of that is making sure that our police department is playing a productive role in protecting us. And you know, that is complex as well, but is extremely important.
Hi, my name is John Bassel. I live on the other side of the farm. I have a question going back to transportation. I went to a meeting at the Metropole building this morning, which is right across the street from the Pioneer Square light rail station. I got out of the light rail station and there's like 3 police cars and a whole bunch of uniformed officers. So there's some concern about safety using the light rail system, and of course there are many people on the system who seem to be riding and not with any destination in mind. So on the one hand, there's safety, and on the other side, there's cost. I was shocked to read an article in the Seattle Times that somewhere in the neighborhood of 40% of people don't actually pay.
Yes.
And you combine that with the $1 million overrun, millions of dollars overrun for the I-90 corridor of the light rail. So how do you, and you've talked about reducing the fare, which frankly I think is very reasonable, and people aren't paying it. So how do you fund the light rail system, assure some security, get your fares without hassling the fare riders? How do you make all that work?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And you know, both Sound Transit and Metro have restarted fare enforcement after a long period during the pandemic. So first of all, during the pandemic, both transit agencies just went fare free for a while, right? They said no fares. And so that's partly why we have these very high fare non-payment rates now, is because everyone kind of got used to not paying. And so there's been this kind of gradual return to fare enforcement. And so I think it's just gonna, I think that fare payment is ticking up, but it's just gonna take a while to get back up to where it used to be. In terms of safety, you know, we had a tragic killing murder of a bus operator last December, and that really kicked off, I mean, it's unfortunate that something like that has to happen to kick off like a real effort, but that kicked off a regional task force on transit safety and security, and I, on behalf of the Transit Riders Union, participated in that, and so we had a whole bunch of meetings and kind of workshops on different aspects of public safety on transit. You know, including, you know, drug use and assault. I mean, lots of different areas. And so that process kind of yielded a whole bunch of recommendations, which now the transit agencies are in the process of working with King County and with Seattle on trying to start implementing. So not just like you know, I'm a daily transit rider, and I'm always riding with my toddler, and you know, definitely have had experiences where I felt unsafe, and especially with her there, felt unsafe. So definitely recognize the problem, and just to say that there are efforts being made in the right direction. And I will say also that really addressing our homelessness crisis will help with this, right? Because part of the problem is that we have so many people who are unsheltered, who often are using the buses as shelter, and some of whom, or many of whom, also have you know, complex problems related to mental illness and drug use. And so that often spills out into problematic behavior that can create unsafe situations. So lots of work to be done there, but yeah, hopeful that we'll be moving in the right direction on that. And part of that is having more official presence on transit. You know, I think a lot of people are concerned with having like lots of just armed police officers on transit, but just more official kind of non-armed security presence can help. And so hopeful that we're moving in the right direction. But you know, the funding problem is real for transit agencies, just as it is for all of our local governments at this point. So that's a bigger conversation as well about how to have sustainable progressive funding for our transit system.
Okay, I see a question here, and then we'll go to the back.
Marty Oppenheimer, Stewart Park. So, Katie, I'm hearing lots of practical answers from you, but you've never run an organization with more than a few employees. You've run a $250,000 organization. The city has 14,000 employees and billions of dollars in expenditures. How do you transition from one to the other? Are you surrounded by good people who you're bringing along with you? How does this work?
Great question, and you know, you might be surprised to learn it's not the first time I've been asked. So I mean, I think it's important to recognize, first of all, that people come into the mayor's office from all kinds of different directions, right? So Seattle's had a 3-term mayor once, Charlie Royer. He came into office from being a news reporter with King TV, right? And our current mayor, right, he was a council member before that, so managing a few people. So there's a lot of different paths to the mayor's office. And you know, the work that I've done over the years, yes, the Transit Riders Union is a small organization in terms of staff and budget, kind of by design, because it's a very volunteer-driven organization. So we have hundreds of dues-paying members. And so the work that I've done, especially with building coalitions, is not necessarily represented by the size of that organization, right? So when I build a coalition, we're talking about dozens of organizations and managing the work of staff who are spending part of their time, you know, from those different organizations. Now, that said, no, I've not managed an organization with 14,000 people, right? And so that makes it very, very important how I'm building that executive team that comes into the mayor's office with me. When we came out of the primary with 51% of the vote, things got real serious real quick, right? So immediately brought together a team of people who I can't name at this point, but who people who are not currently working in City Hall, but who've had long experience in City Hall under multiple administrations. And so they helped me to really examine the way the last kind of 4 or 5 administrations have run in terms of the structure of the mayor's office and the relationship between the mayor's office and the departments. And so we've mapped out what I think is a really strong kind of structure for the mayor's office. And I'm very aware that I need to bring people in with me, especially in some key roles, who do have deep City Hall experience, who have deep management experience, and we're actually currently vetting a short list of candidates for a few of those key roles. So I'm really excited about what that team's going to look like. I can't share any names at this point, but yeah, definitely have been having a lot of great conversations with people who've been around the block.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the mic just went out, so Aaron,
Yep.
you know, that, I think something may just got pulled, but I know, let's do a question in 10 seconds question and an answer in 30 seconds, because Mayor Harrell's arrived. So last quick question for Katie.
How you doing? My name is Louis Hunter. I'm a small business owner. Have about 4 employees, pay them all well. My concern is, you know, I also try to do real estate development, lucky enough to have a couple dollars to buy some real estate. I can't build anything. It's very difficult to develop in this city, and I kind of feel like your sole focus has been on homeless people and people that aren't working, you know, aren't moving society forward, trying to build and work and do everything every day. Like, what are you doing for people like me that I'm successful? I work, I make it. You know, but I'm trying to do more. I'm trying to feed people I care about. What are you gonna do for people like me? I'm not homeless. I don't need a handout. You know.
That's a great question. So you're a housing developer or developing?
I do that.
Yeah.
I own a construction company for a little bit. I own a law firm as well.
Got it.
So I do development.
Yeah.
Car accidents, insurance money.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, on the development side, I do think that the city can and must do more to make it easier to build housing and to develop new projects in the city. And so that means looking at our permitting processes, our design review processes, trying to streamline those and trying to make it so that we're not kind of injecting costly delays into those processes. So, I mean, that's one thing. I'd be interested to hear more, obviously not right now, but about what the barriers are that you feel there are. Because, yeah, I mean, obviously, in order for our city to be thriving, we need lots of good jobs, and we need people who are, you know, running small businesses and leading companies that are also creating those good jobs. So, yeah, I'm here for that. Sorry?
Takes about 3 years to get started.
Right, well, that needs to change.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I'll just say that in the small business conversations I've been having, it's very clear that it's very, very hard to start a small business, partly because there are so many hoops to jump through, different agencies, different levels of government you have to interface with, and those processes don't always line up. So I've definitely talked to business owners who saved up a bunch of money thinking, okay, it's gonna take me 9 months to start this business, and then it took them 2 years and there go their savings, right? So that's a problem, and I think the city can play a role in making that better.
When did
Great.
this start?
Let's actually, I want to stop here because Mayor Harrell's in the house, and I want to invite Mayor to come up here. And so, welcome. All right, so we're going to transition format here, and just to bring you up to speed, Mayor, we've had 30 minutes of questions. Katie gave some opening statements. We've had questions about being a busker, addressing the homelessness crisis, accountability for organizations working the good fight, Amazon job losses, what are we going to do about troops on the streets and ICE, transit safety and rare fares, her experience, and what she's going to do for just normal working folk in this city. So that's just a little background on the context. So now we're going to pivot, and we're still going to questions. We have about around a half an hour with both of them. And so we'll ask a question. We have 2 or 3 minutes per answer. We'll do 3 minutes, but if you can do it in less time, more questions. And each you'll get to hear responses from both candidates. And then eventually Katie's going to have to leave, and then we'll have some time Q&A with Mayor Harrell. So how many of you, and this is very audience participation, so how many of you have a burning question that you're ready for? I'm just getting a sense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, and that's the sound of my 3-minute timer. And again, my name's Ron. I'm a board member here. This is your community club. We invite you to become a member. We do great events here year-round, and you can do your own events here. So let's go back there. Please introduce yourself, name, where you live, and a very brief question so we can get to as much as possible.
Karen Jones, I live near here, which is I live near Lake Washington Boulevard. And there have been some pretty lively conversations in this very room about the closures. And I'd like both candidates' view on consideration of any permanent closure or some more appropriate traffic workarounds, or would you have periodic?
And just to clarify, closures of what?
Lake Washington Boulevard.
Of Lake Washington Boulevard. Okay. All right. Would anybody, I think we can switch off back and forth. Does anybody, you've got the mic, Katie, it looks like you want to jump into that one
Sure.
first?
Yeah, I mean, really briefly, you're talking about like the bicycle weekend closures. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, I know that they're very popular with people who go down and bike and walk and roll, you know, along the lake. And I understand that there are some traffic impacts that we were talking about on other kind of roads in the neighborhoods. So yeah, I mean, I'm interested to dig in and figure out what we could do better to mitigate some of that. But yeah, I think I'm generally supportive of the bicycle weekends moving forward.
Thank you. Mayor Harrell.
Would that be periodic ones like we have now, or do you support permanent closures?
Yeah, no, I mean, I support the way the current situation. I think I'm open to a bigger conversation about the future of Lake Washington Boulevard, and obviously that I know that a very contentious conversation has been happening for a long time about that. So, you know, willing to continue that conversation and consider possibilities. But I'm not. I don't have like an endpoint that is definitely in mind on that. But I do support continuing the current weekends.
Well, good evening, everybody. I didn't get a chance for like a warm, cozy introduction. I got to jump right into the tough question about closures. That's okay. So I'll sort of bottom line you, and then I will talk about the process by which we make decisions. I think that's very important. So we try to negotiate closures. Number one, 2 people could love it and think it's the coolest thing to walk and hold your hands and push your stroller and enjoy a good weekend, and other people feel as though it's an inconvenience. And so it's a negotiated process. And we don't have any plans on changing it drastically. We'll continue to talk to you. We'll continue to come here. I think what's very important is that some of you could cuss me about the traffic calming measures too. I see you guys cheating and going around it, by the way. It's about safety. And you all passed the $1.55 billion levy. And what I tried to do when I became mayor is I tried to change the conversation. Remember under Mayor McGinn, this is where the cars versus bikes feud had begun. And I don't want to blame it all on Mayor McGinn. It was even under Greg Nichols. The fact is that in the last several years, we've reduced our number of cars, over 100,000 cars. The fact is kids are doing ride-sharing activities, and bicycles are a form of climate change. The fact is last year under our safety protocols, we didn't have one bike death, and we should be very proud of that. So when you looked at where the levee was, when I said let's attack some of the industrial streets where there's heavy use of the industrial roads, because trucks and bikes actually have similar problems. Slow to accelerate, they don't like hills, and they have to co-locate as well, and that's been a long-going problem in Seattle. So in our administration, we've tried to take a very thoughtful approach. Safety first, calming traffic, but always negotiating outcomes for you, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you very much. We'll go right up here up front. Name, location, and quick question.
Howard Gale from Uptown. It was announced that the spa contract has been finalized, at least from the bargaining table.